So you're thinking about filing a secondary sleep apnea claim. You go to your primary care doctor. You pass the means test. They measure your neck to see how thick it is. That's got to be something they came up with in the 50s. Then they ask you if you're a snorer and if you have restless leg syndrome. There's like a couple questions and you have to answer yes to a bunch of them. And then you get to the sleep study. There's two kinds of sleep studies for sleep apnea. I would go to the one at the sleep center where you go overnight and actually sleep there, and they hook up probes all over your body, but they have a one they send you as well. I would push for the actual sleep study on location. I think that's a better test. You're going to get more objective evidence. But if you can't get that one, you can win with the at-home test as well, but try to get it. So I think a lot of us go to the sleep study and then end up with a diagnosis of sleep apnea. They prescribe us the CPAP machine, and we have symptoms. So we have the diagnosis and the symptoms locked down and the CPAP machine. And if you have the CPAP machine, it's a 50% rating. You don't have to use it. They don't check to see how much you're using it for VA rating purposes. You just need the prescription for it. But where we get denied a lot is the Nexus. So our Nexus linking our current sleep apnea diagnosis to something that's already service connected on a secondary basis, that's where 95% of VA claims for sleep apnea get denied. Before I go over these 3 sleep apnea secondary conditions that are money claims, I want to remind you that I have a boot camp. If you want to reach out to me, you want to talk to me, my boot camp is the best way to get a hold of me. combatcraig.com. There's a couple things that you need to know about sleep apnea claims. One of them is what's known as the intermediate step. It's basically a step between your current diagnosis of sleep apnea and something that's always service connected. A lot of people will go to a doctor and get a Nexus letter, and the Nexus letter isn't written properly, and it just goes sleep apnea directly to tinnitus or something, and it doesn't address the intermediate step. Also, another thing that you need to be aware of is obesity. We've all gained weight since we're off active duty. You got to remember the VA looks at this stuff as a direct service connection. So did you have a diagnosis of sleep apnea when you were 19? No, I didn't have sleep problems. Did you gain weight since you were 19? Yeah, I'm 53. I gained a lot of weight, and that's fluctuated. So they like to look at sleep apnea claims. They want to see a diagnosis on active duty service. And if you're still on active duty, go get a sleep study, because you probably already have it regardless of your age. Like I said, a lot more people have it than we know. So when your doctor writes your Nexus for you, he needs to address the intermediate step and he needs to address obesity. He needs to address both of these things. Obesity is covered under 38 CFR 3.310. Service connection is not allowed for obesity on its own for sleep apnea secondary conditions, but it can act as an intermediate step to connect sleep apnea to a condition that's already service connected. So this is a combo of obesity and the intermediate step. Another example would be medications and their intermediate steps. So there's various intermediate steps. They need to be addressed, and your Nexus needs to be written properly. So when it comes to obesity, they do not allow service connection on its own. But when you're using obesity as an intermediate step, here's what you need to know. But basically what this is saying is the service-connected disability caused the veteran to become obese. So in this case, let's just use back. So your back is jacked and it caused you to become obese because you don't move anymore. I have a jacked back. I take medications and I don't move around. It's caused me to gain weight. That's the first part. Number 2 is the obesity was a substantial factor in causing the claim condition. So if I'm filing a claim for sleep apnea secondary to my lower back, they're going to be looking like, well, if he didn't have this lower back condition, would he still have gotten sleep apnea? Maybe, but you need to argue that I was fine. I didn't have sleep apnea problems. I didn't have obesity problems. My back got jacked up. Started gaining weight because I can't move around and you guys are just popping pills all the time. right? So you have to deal, or you have to say that obesity was a substantial factor because of your lower back. And then the third part is the claimed secondary disability, the sleep apnea, would not have occurred but for the obesity caused by the service-connected disability. So you need to address that too. You need to say that the sleep apnea wouldn't even have occurred in the first place if the lower back didn't occur in the first place, because you would have removed the obesity and the sleep apnea. So you want to address all three of those things. Links in the description to this document. That strategy, that's my boot camp. That's what I talk about. I preach it and I teach it. You need a doctor that can help you with a Nexus letter. Check out my med team. Here's an email address. Hit them up. Tell them you need a Nexus.